Hey my warrior, listen carefully. What I'm about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about yourself. Today I will teach you the only psychological way to become your true self. Take something to write with. Right now, you're not actually in control of your life. You think you're making conscious decisions. What to eat, who to love, what career to pursue, how to spend your time. But the brutal truth is this: 95% of your choices are being made by forces you can't see. Patterns you didn't choose and wounds you don't remember. Carl Jung. Right now, you're not actually in control of your life. You think you're making conscious decisions. What to eat, who to love, what career to pursue, how to spend your time. But the brutal truth is this: 95% of your choices are being made by forces you can't see. Patterns you didn't choose and wounds you don't remember. Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant minds in psychology, discovered something that threatens the very foundation of how we understand ourselves. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Think about that for a moment. Everything you've blamed on bad luck, poor timing, or destiny, your failed relationships, your self-sabotage, your inability to break certain patterns, none of it is fate. It's your unconscious mind pulling strings you can't see. But here's where it gets fascinating. Jung didn't just identify the problem. He mapped the complete solution, a systematic psychological path to becoming your true self. Not the self your parents wanted, not the self society expects, not the self you perform on social media, your actual, authentic, irreplaceable self. And today, I'm going to walk you through this entire system. 6 transformative phases that will strip away every false layer until you finally meet the person you were always meant to be. This isn't therapy. This isn't philosophy. This is psychological surgery, and it will be uncomfortable. Because the truth about yourself, the real truth, is buried under decades of conditioning, repression, and denial. But if you stay with me until the end, you'll gain something more valuable than comfort: freedom. The freedom to finally stop living someone else's script and start writing your own. Grab something to write with, because by the time this video ends, you'll have a complete roadmap to psychological liberation. And if you're ready for this journey, if you're tired of living as a stranger to yourself, then drop a comment right now that says, "I'm ready to meet myself." Because that commitment, that simple declaration, is the first step toward consciousness. Let's begin. Phase 1, shatter the persona. The mask that's been suffocating you. Here's something most people never realize. You've been playing a character so long, you forgot it's not you. Jung called it the persona, the social mask, the acceptable face you show the world. And here's the thing, you needed it. As a child, you learned quickly which parts of yourself earned love and which parts got rejected. So you created a character that would keep you safe, accepted, approved. The good child, the strong one, the successful professional, the caring friend, the rational thinker. Whatever role you adopted, you played it so convincingly that eventually you believed it yourself. But deep down, there's this gnawing feeling, a whisper that says, "This isn't really me." You feel it when you're alone. The gap between who you appear to be and who you actually are. The thoughts you can never speak. The desires you're ashamed to admit. The parts of yourself you've locked away because they don't fit the character. And here's the psychological trap. The more you identify with the persona, the emptier you feel. You can achieve everything your persona promises: the career, the relationship, the status, the approval, and still feel hollow inside. Because you're winning at a game that isn't yours. You're succeeding at being someone else. Listen to this carefully. You are not your job title. You are not your social role. You are not the version of yourself that gets the most likes. These are costumes. Useful costumes, but costumes nonetheless. The first phase of becoming your true self is recognizing where you end and where the performance begins. Here's how to do it. For the next 24 hours, I want you to become a detective of your own behavior. Watch yourself like you're studying a stranger. Notice how your personality shifts depending on context. Pay attention to these moments. The meeting with your boss. Notice how your voice changes, how your posture adjusts, which opinions you share and which you suppress. This is persona in action. The conversation with your family. Watch how you slip into old roles. The responsible one, the problem child, the mediator. These are scripts written decades ago that you're still performing. The social media post. Before you hit send, ask yourself, am I sharing this because it's true or because it fits my brand? That gap between truth and performance, that's the persona controlling you. The moment alone, when no one's watching, who are you? What thoughts emerge when there's no audience to perform for? This is the closest you get to your true self. Now, here's the exercise that will crack your persona wide open. The persona inventory. Tonight, before you sleep, write down 3 things. The version of myself I perform most often is. The parts of myself I hide most carefully are. If people knew what I really think and feel, they would be brutally honest. No one will read this but you. And in that honesty, you'll see for the first time the distance between your authentic self and your performed self. This distance is what's causing your anxiety, your depression, your sense of meaninglessness, because you can't build a real life on a fake foundation. Now, before we go deeper, and trust me, we're about to go much deeper, I need you to do something. If this is resonating, if you're starting to see the persona operating in your own life, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what comes next is going to reveal something most people spend their entire lives running from. And you're going to need this community of truth seekers as you walk this path. Subscribe now. Then let's continue to the darkest phase. Jung wrote, "The persona is a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society. Fittingly enough, a kind of mask, designed to make a definite impression upon others while concealing the true nature of the individual." You've worn the mask long enough. Now let's see what it's been hiding. Descend into the shadow. Meeting the monster you've been running from. What I'm about to tell you will disturb you, and that disturbance is exactly the point. Beneath your persona, beneath your conscious awareness, there lives a part of you that contains everything you've ever rejected about yourself. Jung called it the shadow, and it's running your life from the darkness. Here's what most people don't understand. The shadow isn't just bad stuff. It's every trait, every impulse, every quality you labeled as unacceptable and buried alive in your unconscious. Maybe as a child, you learned that anger wasn't allowed, so you repressed it, but it didn't disappear. It went into the shadow, and now it leaks out in passive-aggressive comments, sudden explosions, or chronic tension in your body. Maybe you learned that ambition was selfish, so you killed that part of yourself, but it didn't die. It went into the shadow, and now you sabotage your own success while resenting those who achieve what you secretly want. Maybe you learned that vulnerability was weakness, so you armored up, but that tender part of you didn't vanish. It went into the shadow, and now you can't form deep connections because you've forgotten how to be real. The shadow contains everything you decided you couldn't be in order to be loved. And here's the psychological law that will change everything. What you reject doesn't disappear. It controls you. Let me prove it to you right now. Think of someone who triggers intense emotional reactions in you. Someone you hate, judge, or feel disgusted by. Got them in your mind? Good. Now here's the truth that will make you uncomfortable. The traits that trigger you most intensely in others are the exact traits you've repressed in yourself. This is called projection. You see in others what you refuse to see in yourself. The person you hate for being arrogant? You're terrified of your own grandiosity. The person you judge for being weak? You've exiled your own vulnerability. The person who disgusts you with their sexuality? You've shamed your own desires. This is why shadow work is the most important psychological work you'll ever do. Because you can't become whole by rejecting half of yourself. Jung discovered something revolutionary. Integration, not elimination, is the path to freedom. You don't destroy the shadow. You reclaim it. You bring it into consciousness, understand its origin, and transform its energy into something useful. Here's the protocol for shadow integration. Step 1. Identify your triggers. For the next 3 days, keep a judgment journal. Every time you have a strong negative reaction to someone, write it down. I can't stand people who blank. I hate when someone blank. I'm disgusted by people who blank. Don't censor yourself. Let the judgments flow. This is data, not morality. Step 2. The mirror question. For each judgment, ask yourself this uncomfortable question. How might I possess this quality in a hidden or subtle way? Your mind will resist. It will say, no, I'm nothing like that person. Push through the resistance. Look deeper. Maybe you judge people who are attention-seeking, but you post carefully curated social media content designed to get validation. Maybe you hate controlling people, but you manipulate situations subtly to get your way. Maybe you despise fake people, but you perform a personality that isn't quite true. The shadow doesn't operate obviously. It hides in the places you're most convinced of your innocence. Step 3. Archaeological excavation. Now we go deeper. Ask yourself, when did I first learn that this trait was unacceptable? Shadow material forms early. A moment when you expressed something authentic and got punished for it. Your anger was met with rage or abandonment. Your sadness was dismissed as weakness. Your joy was too much for the adults around you. In that moment, you made an unconscious decision. I must never show this part of myself again. And that part went into the shadow. But here's the thing. That exiled part of you still wants to live. It's still trying to express itself. And until you bring it into consciousness, it will control you through compulsions, addictions, relationship patterns, and self-sabotage. Step 4. Integration through expression. Once you've identified shadow material, you need to give it conscious, constructive expression. Repressed anger becomes healthy boundaries and assertiveness. Hidden sexuality becomes creative power and passion. Denied vulnerability becomes authentic connection and emotional depth. Rejected ambition becomes focused achievement and leadership. The energy doesn't go away. You transform how it expresses. The advanced shadow work. But here's what most people miss. The shadow doesn't just contain darkness. It contains gold. Jung called this the positive shadow. The talents, strengths, and brilliance you've been too humble or too afraid to claim. Think about compliments you deflect. Talents you minimize. Potential you've abandoned because claiming it felt too arrogant, too risky, too big. That's also shadow material. You've exiled your light as much as your darkness. Ask yourself right now, what gifts have I been hiding? What would I attempt if I wasn't afraid of being too much? What compliments do I receive that I immediately dismiss? The answers reveal the positive shadow, and reclaiming it is just as important as integrating the dark shadow, because you can't become your true self by staying small. Now I know this is intense. I know you're probably feeling resistance right now. Maybe you're thinking, this is too much. I'll come back to this later. But that resistance, that's your shadow protecting itself. It doesn't want to be seen. It's been surviving in the darkness for years, and consciousness threatens its existence. So here's what I need you to do. Leave a comment right now that says, I see my shadow. This simple act is a declaration. You're telling your unconscious mind that you're ready to face what you've been avoiding, and that commitment activates the integration process. Comment now, I see my shadow. Then let's go even deeper. Jung wrote, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. Your shadow has been growing in the dark long enough. Now we bring it into the light. Phase 3. Decode the language of dreams. Your unconscious is trying to tell you something. Every night while you sleep, your unconscious mind creates elaborate films designed specifically for you. Messages encoded in symbols, metaphors, and archetypal images, and you're ignoring them. Most people treat dreams as random neurological noise, meaningless static from a sleeping brain. But Jung discovered something that changes everything. Dreams are the unconscious mind's direct communication channel. Your dreams know things your conscious mind doesn't. They see patterns you're blind to. They warn you about dangers you're ignoring. They show you the path forward when you feel lost. And here's the revolutionary part. Your dreams are trying to balance your consciousness. Jung discovered that dreams operate through compensation. If your conscious mind is too rigid, your dreams become chaotic. If you're suppressing emotions, your dreams become intensely emotional. If you're living too much in your head, your dreams ground you in the body. The unconscious is constantly trying to correct your one-sided conscious attitudes, but you have to learn its language. Let me teach you how to decode it. The Dream Recording Protocol. Starting tonight, keep a journal next to your bed. The moment you wake, before you move, before you check your phone, before your conscious mind rewrites the memory, write down everything you remember. Don't filter. Don't interpret yet. Just capture the setting and atmosphere, the characters and their relationships, the emotions you felt, the actions and events, any dialogue or symbols, the feeling tone when you woke. Here's why this matters. Dreams fade within 90 seconds of waking. Your conscious mind censors and distorts them almost immediately. You must capture them raw. The symbol dictionary you need to forget. Now here's where most people go wrong. They buy dream dictionaries that say, if you dream of water, it means emotion. If you dream of a house, it means your psyche. Throw those away. Symbols are personal, not universal. Yes, there are archetypal patterns. Jung identified those. But water might mean emotion to one person, death to another, and rebirth to a third. The meaning depends on your relationship to the symbol. So instead of looking up definitions, ask yourself, what does this symbol mean to me specifically? What feelings does it evoke? When have I encountered it in waking life? And what associations do I have with it? The answers come from your personal unconscious, not a generic book. The compensation principle. Now, here's where it gets fascinating. Compare your dream content to your waking life attitude. Let's say you're someone who prides yourself on being rational, controlled, always composed. Then you have a dream where everything is chaotic. Floods, fires, uncontrollable emotions, wild scenarios. This isn't random. Your unconscious is compensating for your rigid consciousness. It's saying, you're too controlled. You need to integrate more spontaneity, emotion, chaos. Or maybe you're someone who's very accommodating, always saying yes, never setting boundaries. Then you dream of being aggressive, violent, saying no, pushing people away. Again, not random. Your shadow aggression is trying to emerge. Your unconscious is showing you the assertiveness you need to develop consciously. The compensation principle means your dreams show you exactly what your consciousness is missing. The recurring dream. Pay special attention to recurring dreams. These are like emergency messages from the unconscious. You're not listening, so I'm going to keep showing you until you get it. A woman keeps dreaming she's unprepared for an exam. In waking life, she realizes she's been avoiding a major life transition, feeling unprepared for the next chapter. A man repeatedly dreams of being chased by a threatening figure. In waking life, he's running from shadow material, anger he won't acknowledge, power he's afraid to claim. If you have a recurring dream, your unconscious is screaming at you. Listen. The active imagination technique. Now I'm going to teach you something powerful. Jung developed a method called active imagination, consciously engaging with dream figures while awake. Here's how it works. Take a dream figure that feels significant. Could be a person, an animal, even an object. Close your eyes and imagine yourself back in the dream. Now, engage the figure in dialogue. Ask it questions. Who are you? What do you want from me? What part of me do you represent? Then, and this is crucial, let it answer. Don't make up responses with your conscious mind. Wait. Be patient. Allow answers to emerge from the unconscious. The responses will often surprise you. They'll contain information your conscious mind didn't know. Insights that feel like they're coming from someone else inside you. Because they are. They're coming from the unconscious, which has access to information your ego doesn't. The archetypal figures. Jung identified recurring figures that appear across cultures and individuals. When these show up in your dreams, pay close attention. The shadow figure, same-sex character, often threatening or disturbing, represents rejected aspects of yourself. Instead of running, turn and face them. Ask what they want to teach you. The Anima, Animus, opposite-sex character who feels significant. For men, this is the Anima, your internal feminine. For women, the Animus, your internal masculine. They represent your relationship to the unconscious itself. The wise old man, woman, teacher, guide, elder figure, represents deep wisdom and higher consciousness trying to emerge. The child, innocent or vulnerable figure, represents new potential, wounded aspects, or your authentic self before conditioning. The trickster, chaotic, mischievous, disruptive character, represents the need to break rigid patterns and embrace spontaneity. When these archetypes appear, they're marking major developmental movements in your psyche. Your dream practice starting tonight. Here's your commitment. 30 days of dream journaling. Every morning, record your dreams. At the end of each week, review your entries and look for recurring symbols. What keeps appearing? Emotional themes. What feelings dominate? Repeated scenarios. What situations keep playing out? They're archetypal figures. Who shows up repeatedly? These patterns form a map of your unconscious terrain. And that map shows you exactly where you need to go next in your development. But here's the thing about dreams. They don't just reflect the past. They point toward the future. Jung discovered that dreams have a prospective function. They show you the person you're becoming, the potential trying to emerge, the path your psyche wants to take. If you learn to listen, dreams become your most trusted advisor, constantly providing course corrections, warnings, encouragement, and guidance. Now, if you're starting to see the power of this, if you're realizing your unconscious has been trying to communicate this whole time, then subscribe to this channel right now, because we're going to go even deeper. And you're going to need access to these advanced techniques as you continue this journey. Subscribe now. Then let's move into territory that will fundamentally shift how you understand yourself. Jung wrote, "The dream is a little hidden door in the innermost and most secret recesses of the soul. You've been ignoring that door. Now we're going to open it. Integrate your internal opposite. The hidden power you've been giving away. This phase is going to challenge everything you think you know about masculinity and femininity. So stay with me." Jung discovered something controversial. Every man contains an internal feminine, and every woman contains an internal masculine. Not as stereotypes, but as psychological functions. He called them the Anima, the feminine in men, and the Animus, the masculine in women. And here's why this matters to becoming your true self. Your relationship to this internal opposite determines your relationship to your entire unconscious. Let me explain what this means in practical terms. For men, the Anima revelation. If you're a man, you have an internal feminine that most likely you've been taught to reject, suppress, or fear. You learned early that certain qualities were weak, emotional, feminine, and therefore unacceptable. So you exiled your emotions. You armored your vulnerability. You cut yourself off from intuition, from receptivity, from the inner life. And now you're paying the price. Men with an unintegrated anima are emotionally volatile. moody, and dependent on women for emotional regulation. They can't access their own feelings directly, so they need a partner to feel anything at all. They're prone to intense projections, idealizing women, then becoming disillusioned when reality doesn't match the fantasy. They're seeking in women what they refuse to develop in themselves. The Anima appears in your dreams as various female figures. The seductive woman, the nurturing mother, the terrifying witch, the wise guide. Each represents different aspects of your relationship to your inner life. Pay attention to these dream women. They're showing you exactly what you need to integrate. Here's how men integrate the Anima. Practice 1. Emotional literacy. Learn to identify and name your feelings without needing external validation. Stop saying "I'm fine" when you're not. Stop acting out emotions instead of feeling them. Start with this. 3 times a day, stop and ask, "What am I feeling right now?" Name it specifically. Not just good or bad. Anger, sadness, joy, fear, shame, excitement. This simple practice reconnects you to your emotional reality. Practice 2. Creative expression. The Anima is deeply connected to creativity. Men who develop artistic practices, writing, painting, music, any form of creative expression, often find emotional access they couldn't achieve through analysis alone. Create something that has no purpose except expression. Not for profit, not for an audience, just for the act of bringing something into form. Practice 3. Relationship consciousness. Stop demanding women complete you. Notice when you're projecting, expecting a partner to provide emotional grounding, intuitive wisdom, or creative inspiration that you won't develop internally. The integrated man can feel deeply without losing masculine direction. He's emotionally intelligent without becoming passive. He relates to women as equals, not as saviors or mysteries. For women, the Animus awakening. If you're a woman, you have an internal masculine that you've likely been taught to either fear or perform inauthentically. Maybe you learned to suppress your assertiveness to be nice. Or maybe you developed a harsh, masculine persona to succeed in a male world, while disconnecting from your authentic feminine power. Either way, the Animus is distorted. Women with an unintegrated Animus are plagued by harsh internal criticism. They hear a voice that's never satisfied, always judging, constantly comparing. This is the negative Animus, internalized patriarchal standards running your inner dialogue. Or they become passive, unable to assert boundaries, deferring to external male authority, fathers, partners, bosses, because they haven't claimed their internal authority. The Animus appears in dreams as male figures. The critical father, the idealized lover, the wise teacher, the threatening stranger. Each shows you your relationship to your internal power. Here's how women integrate the Animus. Practice 1. Reclaim your authority. Stop deferring to external male validation. Develop your own opinions, convictions, and intellectual framework. Trust your own judgment. Start by catching yourself mid-sentence when you say, "My boyfriend think," or "My father says," and asking, "But what do I think?" Practice 2. Assertive communication. The Animus provides the capacity to say no, set boundaries, and advocate for yourself without guilt or apology. Practice stating your needs directly. "I need," "I want," "I will," "I won't." These simple declarative sentences are acts of Animus integration. Practice 3. Focused ambition. The Animus drives achievement and focused will. Stop apologizing for wanting success, recognition, or impact. Stop making yourself small to be acceptable. Set a goal that's purely yours, not what someone else wants for you, not what will make you look good, and pursue it with single-minded focus. The integrated woman becomes powerful without becoming masculine. She thinks clearly while honoring intuition. She doesn't need male approval to know her worth. The integration challenge for everyone. Whether you're a man or a woman, the task is the same. Develop the qualities you've projected onto the opposite sex. Men must reclaim emotion, intuition, and receptivity. Women must reclaim logic, assertion, and focused will. This doesn't mean becoming androgynous. It means becoming for a complete, a whole human being with access to the full spectrum of human capacity. The dialogue practice. Here's your weekly practice. Spend 15 minutes in active imagination with your internal opposite. Men, imagine a wise female figure. Ask her, what do you need from me? What am I ignoring? How can I honor you? Women, imagine a strong, benevolent male figure. Ask him, what power am I not claiming? Where do I need more clarity? What truth am I avoiding? Write down the responses. Let them come from the unconscious, not your conscious expectations. Over time, these dialogues will transform your relationship to yourself and to others. Because when you integrate the Anima or Animus, you stop needing others to complete you. And that's when real relationship becomes possible. Not projection-based attachment, but genuine meeting between two whole people. If this is landing, if you're starting to see your internal opposite operating in your life, leave a comment that says, I'm integrating my opposite. This declaration activates the process. It tells your unconscious you're ready to become complete. Jung wrote, the meeting with oneself is, at first, the meeting with one's own shadow. The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door, whose painful constriction no one is spared who goes down to the deep well. You're through the narrow door. Now we go deeper still. Phase 5. Encounter the center. Meeting the intelligence that guides your life, we've reached the most profound phase. Everything up to this point has been preparation for this encounter. Jung called it the self. And it's not what you think. The self isn't your ego. Your ego is the center of your consciousness. The I that makes decisions, thinks thoughts, navigates daily life. The self is the center of your entire psyche. Conscious and unconscious, personal and universal, individual and collective. The self is the organizing intelligence that's been orchestrating your development from the beginning. Think about it. Something in you has been pushing toward growth. Something has been sending dreams, creating synchronicities, arranging circumstances. Something has been trying to make you whole this entire time. That something is the self. And here's the paradigm shift. You don't create the self. You discover it. You don't control it. You align with it. Most people never encounter the self. They live in the narrow world of ego, mistaking the tip of the iceberg for the whole mountain. But Jung discovered that psychological development has a direction toward self-realization, toward individuation, toward becoming the unique individual you were always meant to be. The self speaks in symbols. Because the self is beyond ego comprehension, it communicates symbolically. You can't grasp it intellectually. You can only experience it through images and patterns. Common self-symbols that appear spontaneously in dreams and life. Mandalas. Circular, symmetrical patterns. When you find yourself doodling circles, creating geometric patterns, or drawn to mandala images, the self is activating. Quaternities. Fourfold structures. The cross, the square, 4 directions, 4 elements. The number 4 represents completeness. Divine figures. Not as religious dogma, but as symbols of totality. In Buddha, Christ, the Great Mother, whatever your cultural background, these represent the self. Nature symbols. Mountains, oceans, the sun, ancient trees. Images of vastness and unity that evoke something beyond the personal. When these symbols appear spontaneously, in dreams, in art, in moments of peak experience, the psyche is reorganizing around the self. Pay attention. These aren't random, they're markers of profound inner transformation. The inflation trap. But here's the danger. When people first encounter the self, they often make a catastrophic mistake. They identify with it. The ego mistakes itself for the self. I'm not just a person, I'm enlightened. I'm special. I'm chosen. I have secret knowledge others don't. Inflation. and it's incredibly common in spiritual and psychological circles. You see it in gurus who claim to be awakened while acting out shadow material, in therapists who think they've transcended human limitations, in self-help influencers who project false wholeness. True self-encounter is profoundly humbling, because when you touch the self, you realize you're not the center of your own psyche. Something larger is directing development, and your task isn't control, Phase 6. Live as your true self. The embodiment that changes everything. You've confronted the persona. You've integrated the shadow. You've decoded your dreams. You've balanced your internal opposite. You've touched the self. Now comes the most challenging part, living it. Because here's what most people don't understand about psychological transformation. Knowledge changes nothing. Only embodiment transforms. You can understand Jung's entire system intellectually and still live as a stranger to yourself. You can analyze your dreams and still act from unconscious compulsion. You can talk about individuation and still wear the persona 24/7. The final phase isn't about learning more. It's about becoming more. It's about taking everything you've discovered and weaving it into the fabric of your daily existence until your true self isn't something you access occasionally. It's who you are consistently, regardless of circumstances. This is individuation in action. This is psychological liberation made flesh. The characteristics of the individuated life. Let me paint you a picture of what this actually looks like, not as abstract theory, but as lived reality. Authentic presence. When you've done this work deeply, people notice something different about you. You're not performing anymore. The persona becomes a conscious tool you use strategically, not an unconscious prison you're trapped in. You walk into a room, and there's a quality to your presence that's hard to name. It's not confidence, that can be faked. It's not charisma, that can be manufactured. It's a realness. People sense they're meeting an actual person, not a construct. You speak and your words land differently because they're coming from an integrated center, not from fragmented personas trying to please, impress, or defend. Emotional sovereignty. You feel the full spectrum of human emotion. Rage, grief, ecstasy, terror, but you're not controlled by any of it. Shadow integration means you can hold intense feelings without acting them out or suppressing them. Someone criticizes you, and instead of immediately defending or collapsing, you pause. You feel the sting. You notice the defensive impulse, and then you choose your response consciously. Someone betrays you, and instead of immediately projecting all evil onto them, you feel your pain, acknowledge your part in the dynamic, and respond with clarity rather than reaction. This is emotional maturity. Not the absence of feeling, but the capacity to feel fully while maintaining consciousness. Moral autonomy. You stop living by other people's rules. Not because you're rebellious, but because you've developed genuine values through deep psychological work. You know what's true for you. Not what your parents said was right. Not what society expects. Not what gets the most approval. What's actually aligned with your nature. And you follow that internal compass even when it costs you. Even when people misunderstand. Even when it would be easier to conform. This is what Jung meant by ethical living. Not following an external moral code, but acting from integrated wholeness. Creative contribution. The individuated person naturally serves the collective. Not from obligation or guilt, but because when you're aligned with the self, you can't help but contribute your unique gifts. You stop asking, what will make me successful? And start asking, what is mine to do? The answer comes not from ambition, but from listening to what wants to emerge through you. And when you follow that, your work carries a quality that's unmistakable. It's not imitation. It's not following trends. It's original, because it's coming from your unique psychological configuration. Comfort with paradox. You can hold contradictions without needing to resolve them into false simplicity. You're strong and vulnerable, confident and uncertain, successful and still growing. You contain multitudes, and you're no longer trying to present a consistent brand. The need to be understood by everyone dissolves. You know yourself deeply enough that others' misunderstandings don't threaten you. Relationship to destiny. This is the fulfillment of Jung's foundational insight. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Once consciousness arrives, fate transforms into destiny. You stop experiencing life as something that happens to you. You recognize your active role in creating circumstances through unconscious patterns, and you take responsibility for transforming them. Bad relationships aren't bad luck anymore. They're patterns calling for integration. Career dissatisfaction isn't external circumstances. It's misalignment with your authentic path. Recurring problems aren't fate. They're the psyche's way of showing you what needs attention. You become the author of your existence, not its victim. The daily practices that sustain individuation. Living as your true self isn't a one-time achievement. It's a daily commitment. Here are the practices that separate those who complete the journey from those who understand it intellectually, but don't embody it. Morning ritual. Conscious awakening. Before you check your phone, before you engage the world's demands, spend 15 minutes with yourself. Ask, who am I today? Beneath what the world will ask me to be. Journal whatever dream fragments you remember. Even if it's just an image or a feeling, this maintains your relationship with the unconscious. Meditate briefly, not to achieve anything, but to establish your center before external forces pull at you. Set an intention. Today, I choose consciousness over compulsion. This simple morning ritual changes everything. It establishes sovereignty over your day from the beginning. Midday checkpoint persona awareness. Set a reminder for midday. When it goes off, pause and ask, am I being myself right now or am I performing? Notice which persona you've slipped into unconsciously. The overachiever, the people pleaser, the tough guy, the know-it-all. You don't have to immediately drop it. Just notice it. Awareness is the beginning of choice. Evening ritual, shadow integration. Before sleep, view your day like you're watching footage of someone else's life. Ask, when did shadow material leak through today? Maybe you judged someone harshly. That's projection. What in yourself did you see in them? Maybe you felt intense emotion that seemed disproportionate to the situation. That's a trigger. What old wound got activated? Maybe you acted in a way that surprised you. That's unconscious material. What part of yourself are you still not acknowledging? Write it down. Just noting it begins the integration process. Weekly ritual, active imagination. Once a week, dedicate 30 minutes to deep dialogue with your unconscious. Sit quietly and invite a dream figure, a shadow aspect, or your Anima Animus into conversation. Ask questions. Listen for answers that emerge not from your conscious mind, but from somewhere deeper. What are you trying to tell me? Yuli, what do you need from me? How can I integrate you more fully? Record what comes. These dialogues become increasingly profound as you develop the practice. Monthly ritual, life review. Once a month, zoom out. Look at the previous 30 days and ask, what patterns am I seeing? To me, what synchronicities appeared? Where is the self leading me? What resistances keep showing up? This bird's eye view reveals movements that are invisible in daily life. You start to see the larger arc of your individuation, the loneliness of authenticity. I need to tell you something most teachers won't. Individuation can be lonely. When you stop performing collective roles, some relationships end. When you integrate shadow material, you can no longer participate in group projections. When you think independently, you lose the comfort of groupthink. People who knew the old you might not recognize the real you. Some will be threatened by your transformation. Others will simply drift away because you're no longer playing the game. This loneliness is the price of authenticity, and it's temporary, because eventually you find others on the same path, and these connections are deeper than anything you experienced before because they're not based on unconscious projection or shared personas. They're soul-level meetings between the social responsibility of your transformation. But here's what makes this journey meaningful beyond personal benefit. Your individuation serves everyone around you. When you stop projecting your shadow, you stop creating enemies. When you integrate your anima, animus, you stop demanding others complete you. When you live from the self, you become a stabilizing presence in a chaotic world. A world of individuated people would transform collective consciousness. Imagine a society where masses of people stopped living through projection, unconscious compulsion, and borrowed identity, where people took responsibility for their shadow instead of electing leaders to act it out, where men and women related as equals instead of projections, where work was authentic contribution instead of ego compensation. This is why your individual journey matters collectively. You're not just healing yourself, you're modeling a different way of being human. The warning about incomplete work. Let me be brutally honest about something. Many people start this journey and stop halfway. They read Jung, they understand the concepts, they might even have some insights, but they don't do the daily work. They don't sit with the uncomfortable feelings. They don't track their dreams consistently. They don't face their shadow when it would be easier to project. Incomplete individuation is more dangerous than never starting. Because you know enough to see through collective illusions, but you haven't built the psychological strength to stand alone. You become cynical, isolated, or inflated, superior in attitude but fragmented in psyche. You see through others' personas while hiding behind your own. You judge others' shadow while avoiding your own. You understand the theory while missing the embodiment. Don't be that person. If you're going to walk this path, walk it all the way. Move through each phase thoroughly. Do the practices, track the patterns. Stay with the discomfort, because halfway consciousness is worse than unconsciousness. It's awareness without transformation, and that creates suffering, not liberation. The ultimate freedom. But for those who complete the journey, and I mean truly complete it, not just intellectually understand it, something extraordinary happens. You become free. Not free from responsibility, consequence, or limitation. Free from unconscious compulsion. Free to choose your responses instead of being controlled by reactions. Free to feel deeply without being overwhelmed. Free to be yourself regardless of who's watching. Free to create from authenticity rather than compensation. Free to love without projection. Free to lead without domination. Free to be powerful without violence. This is psychological liberation. This is becoming your true self. Not discovering a fixed identity, but engaging in lifelong dialogue between ego and self, consciousness and unconscious, individual and collective. You become a unique expression of universal humanity, irreplaceable but connected, individual but integrated, free but responsible. This is what Jung meant by individuation. This is what it means to finally fully, completely become who you actually are. And when you reach this state, not as a permanent achievement but as a way of being you return to daily, you realize something profound. You were never supposed to be anyone else. All that suffering, all those years of performance, all that energy spent trying to fit in, it was unnecessary. You were always enough. You just didn't know how to be yourself. Now you do, Jung wrote. I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. You've learned how to choose. Now you know how to become. Conclusion. Your declaration of consciousness. We've reached the end of this teaching. But this isn't an ending. It's a beginning. You now possess the complete map for psychological transformation. Phase 1. Shatter the persona. Recognize the masks you wear. Phase 2. Descend into the shadow. Integrate what you've rejected. Phase 3. Decode your dreams. Listen to the unconscious. Phase 4. Integrate your opposite. Balance Anima, Animus. Phase 5. Encounter the self. Align with your center. Phase 6. Live your truth. Embody individuation daily. This isn't theory. This isn't philosophy. This is the only proven psychological path to becoming your true self. But everything I've taught you is worthless without one thing: your commitment. Knowledge without application is a prison. Understanding without embodiment is torture. You can have the map and still stay lost if you don't take the first step. So here's what I need you to do right now. First, leave a comment that says, "I choose consciousness over fate." This isn't a catchphrase. It's a declaration. You're telling your unconscious mind and the universe that you refuse to live asleep anymore, that you're ready to do the work, that you're committed to becoming real. Comment now, "I choose consciousness over fate." That simple act activates the individuation process. The moment you declare your intention, synchronicities begin. Opportunities appear. The path reveals itself. Second, choose one phase to focus on for the next 7 days. Not all 6. That's ego inflation. One practice done deeply. If you choose persona work, observe your masks relentlessly. If you choose shadow work, track your projections daily. If you choose dream work, record every dream. If you choose Anima, Animus work, dialogue with your opposite. If you choose self-encounter, follow synchronicities. If you choose individuated living, align one decision daily with authentic values. 1 week, 1 practice, full commitment. Third, share this video with someone who needs it. You know who they are. The person living behind a mask. The person controlled by unconscious patterns. The person who feels lost because they don't know who they really are. Your share could change their life. Seriously, this information has the power to crack open someone's entire reality. Don't keep it to yourself. Finally, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because this is just the beginning. We're building a community of people committed to consciousness, depth, and truth. The videos coming next will take you even deeper. Advanced shadow integration techniques that transform your darkest material into power. Dream interpretation masterclasses that decode the unconscious most cryptic messages. Active imagination protocols for dialogue with archetypal forces. Synchronicity tracking systems that reveal your life's hidden patterns. Anima, Animus integration practices for men and women. The collective unconscious and your role in humanity's evolution. Archetypal analysis that reveals your mythic pattern. We're going places most psychology channels are afraid to go. Into the depths where real transformation happens, where comfortable lies dissolve and uncomfortable truths set you free. But I can only continue this work if you show me you're serious. Subscribe, engage, comment, share. Show me there's an audience for depth, not just surface-level motivation. The uncomfortable truth. Let me end with something most teachers won't tell you. This work will cost you. It will cost you comfortable lies. Familiar patterns, easy relationships, the version of yourself that keeps everyone else comfortable, the identity you've built your entire life. But what you gain in return is infinitely more valuable. Yourself. The real you. The one who's been buried under decades of conditioning. The one who's been sending you dreams, synchronicities, and symptoms trying to get your attention. The one who's been waiting your entire life for you to finally come home. That version of yourself is worth every sacrifice. Because once you meet your true self, once you integrate the fragments, face the shadows and align with your center, you'll look back on your old life and barely recognize it. You'll wonder how you survived so long as a stranger to yourself. How you tolerated the performance, the pretense, the profound loneliness of living behind masks. And you'll feel profound gratitude for whatever crisis, insight, or moment of grace brought you to this teaching. The psyche is waiting. Your unconscious has been trying to communicate with you for years. Through dreams you ignored, through symptoms you medicated, through patterns you repeated without understanding. It's been waiting for you to listen. And now, finally, you have the tools to hear it, to dialogue with it, to integrate it, to become whole. But the psyche doesn't wait forever. There are critical windows for transformation, moments when you're open, receptive, ready for change. This might be yours. Don't waste it by intellectualizing. Don't avoid it by staying busy. Don't delay it by telling yourself someday. Someday is the unconscious taking over again. Someday is fate, not destiny. Start today. Start now. Start with that comment. I choose consciousness over fate. Your life is calling. Somewhere inside you, your true self is calling. It's been calling since you were a child, before the conditioning set in, before you learned to perform, before you forgot who you were. It's calling now, through whatever combination of pain, curiosity, or yearning brought you to this video. Will you answer? Will you do the work? Will you face the shadow? Will you integrate the opposites? Will you align with the self? Will you finally, after all these years of living as someone else's idea of who you should be, become yourself? The choice is yours.